Hey guys, hey, thank you everyone. Yeah, this is Aditya, alum. Welcome to the call. Yes, I mean, yeah, you could keep yourself on mute. That's fine. We will, I'll of course walk through the session format in some time shortly, but let's give it a minute more and then we can probably get started. All right, guys, thank you all for joining on time. I think we will just keep rolling from here. Hey, Suryansh, yes, I can see you as well. Hey, Nikun, thank you for joining. Uh, I will I'll just do a quick introduction for the people who don't know me. I think some of you already on this call already know me. I am Prayash. I'm the co-founder of LilacBuds along with Rajiv. Some of you have been working with Rajiv as well. The two of us are extremely thankful for all of you to join on time. We're excited to do our first webinar with the admissions director for India for IESE, one of Europe's top business schools. That is, we have with us Ridhi, and Ridhi will be the session format will be that she'll be starting off with a small presentation, of course, about IESE. Hopefully, giving a quick overview about what IESE offers to all MBA aspirants, to MIM aspirants, and generally, its overall depth in terms of its case study approach and how they make sure that the whole MBA learning experience is really fruitful. That'll be the first 10-15 minutes with Riddhi doing the little bit of presentation. After that, I'm really going to be opening up the floor to you guys. I know many of you have already asked a few questions to me, and best is if you ask them directly to the director for admissions yourself. She'll be happy to take on any question, Riddhi, as long as it's not about any other, as long as it's not about any other B school. I think we just want to keep it a little bit
Certainly.
more, sane out there. So don't ask for comparisons with HEC and LBS. You can do some of that yourself. I mean, that's another natural one that I've got across the way. And trust me, I already asked Riddhi, but she has said that we will gracefully avoid some of those questions. Those are opinions and blogs you can always find online, right? So I'll
Absolutely.
leave any non-IESE questions out of the window for Europe, but overall, anything else, please feel free to ask her. All right. So yeah, with that, I think we've got quite a quorum, Riddhi. Over to you. The floor is
Yes.
yours to take
Thank
over.
you. Thank you so much, Prayash, and the entire team at LilacBuds. Extremely excited to be here and meet all of you and hopefully give you guys an insider's perspective because as you know that apart from being the admissions director, I'm also an alumni, right? So I've been in your shoes, and I think most importantly, I've been a former MBA applicant. So I think the pulse, the emotion, that each of you are experiencing, right now, thinking about, okay, what is this next big step that I need to take? Which is this B school that'll be the right fit for me? And, when I say fit, I really want to stress upon this because it just goes so much beyond ranking and location, right? It's also a lot about, is it an academic fit, right? What do I want to take away from this program? Of course, most importantly, what is my career fit, right? How is this MBA going to help me, get placed in my dream job post the MBA? And I think as an Indian international applicant, this is a core requirement, right? That, okay, what are the opportunities for me to really leverage this MBA experience and make sure that I walk away with a very strong return on this investment? I mean, as an alumnus, and like I said, as a former student, I like to call the MBA an investment and not an expense, because trust me, you certainly are investing in upskilling, upgrading yourself constantly, right? And trust me, having graduated from the program 5 years ago, I can truly understand the benefits of, when they say leadership, right? I mean, so many of these buzzwords are thrown your way, when you're in the MBA program, but I think it's truly coming to life in my personal and professional experiences almost 5 years later even, right? So that's what the IESE MBA really like was for me. But I think, let me take you guys through what the program has to offer. I'm very happy to pause at certain sections and also take questions pertaining that section, because I know that, when you see a piece of information, something goes, a light bulb probably goes on, and you're like, oh my God, let me sort of understand this a bit more. So I'll give you guys enough pauses so that if you have specific questions, I'll take them at that time. If not, like Priyash said, we'll obviously get to a more exhaustive Q&A section, once I finish the presentation. Just give me a moment as I share my screen. Priyash, just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen.
Yep, I can.
Perfect. All right, guys. So, well, to begin with, thank you so much for being here today. And I'd like to call this an info session, because it is really the first 10 minutes about me giving you as much information overload as possible on the program, and hopefully then, address your questions or your queries. So let's talk a little bit about, well, me, right? As you all know, I'm the Associate Director of Admissions. Like I kind of hinted earlier, also an alumnus, graduated back in 2017. Both prior and post the MBA, I actually worked in my family business in a very hardcore marketing role. I worked across the real estate industry and the luxury beauty industry. But about 3 years ago, I started dabbling my passion in education, right? And I think the reason why I mentioned this is because I don't think when I was in the MBA program that I would ever pivot to the education sector, but having gone through the entire process, understanding what are my key strengths, right? Where is it that I see the impact of my work taking me? And having that courage that it's fine, it's okay to sort of, take big risks and eventually, see some of your dreams that you would have been otherwise scared to sort of undertake come to fruition. And I think for me, the MBA certainly cemented that, right? And well, here I am, having worked as an admissions consultant for about 2.5 years. And now, of course, part of the admissions team at IESE. Now, this slide is a very fun slide and something that, I always like to share, because, you will hear me talking about diversity and how important, it is for us to have each of you bringing different perspectives to the table. And, 85% international students, 50 plus nationalities, right? All of these big statistics. But honestly, guys, this is the reality of it. This was my learning team. So for the first 1 year that I was at IESE, on day one, I was allotted this fantastic team. And as you can see, my entire team of 8 members represented like so many different nationalities, right? Like I had a Brazilian, Brit, of course, I was the Indian and or the Asian on the team. I had someone from France. I had an Israeli Air Force pilot. I had half Swiss, half Italian, and of course, Spaniards, right? I mean, you're in a Spanish school at the end of the day. But so this is the kind of diversity that you are part of from day one. And trust me, these guys were my family for the entirety of 2 years, and we continue to be really good friends, even though, the first time we met was almost 7 years ago today, right? And this is the kind of, integration that you will be a part of at IESE. And this is why we say that, diversity is at the absolute core of who we are and what we stand for. Yeah. Now, rankings. I know, as an Indian applicant, how important rankings are for all of us, right? Because, and rightly so, especially for some of you who intend to come back to India, post the MBA. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, rankings have a big role to play, when you're thinking about recruitment, when you're thinking about, am I going to get, a solid job which is going to pay me sort of equitable, salaries to, like, say, the European market or, the UK market as such. Well, in that case, let me tell you that you're fully covered. We're number 3 in Europe and number 10 globally, as per the Financial Times rankings of this year. So, that you're coming to a top B school, when you decide to apply and come to IESE, right? You're not. So as Priya said, I wouldn't compare us to, any other program, but what I can tell you is that whether it's academic, whether it's career, whether it's student engagement, whether it's culture, whether it's just the entire living experience, it definitely does not get better than IESE, right? And no biases, despite the fact that I lived 2 years, in the program and thrived, at both in Barcelona at IESE. Trust me, guys, it is the best memorable 2 years and transformational 2 years that you will experience. Now, quickly taking you through what the overall structure of the 2 years looks like, right? Now, if you decide to apply and should you get into the program, you will find yourself on campus next August, right? So that's the August of 2023. When you come to campus in August, you can opt for something called Business Spanish. It's a 2-week intensive program where you learn the Spanish language. Now, it's not mandatory, and trust me, you not knowing Spanish is not a deterrent to your experience at IESE and even be living in Barcelona, right? Now, I survived, and forget survived, right? Like, I enjoyed my 2 years in Barcelona and IESE with like probably 3 phrases, which encompassed "Hola, ¿cómo estás? No hablo español, por favor." That was it. But so you can imagine that, while of course not knowing Spanish is not an issue, but knowing it is always fun, right? It's a new language. You get the opportunity to potentially even graduate with a bilingual degree if you actually decide to go through the entire course that's offered through the 2 years, free of cost, right? Now, if you don't decide to do business Spanish, your orientation and classes would start in the month of September. So for the entirety of year 1, you would go through 24 core courses covering all the essentials of marketing, finance, leadership, strategy, operations. You name the subject and you would have developed at least a basic fundamental understanding of that business vertical. Now, you see there are 2 divisions, 15 months and 19 months, right? You might want to ask me, Ridhi, what's the core difference, right? Why should someone go for 15 months and not 19 months? I would say that, especially in the context of an Indian student, right? If you are coming from a family business setup, or if you are a sponsored candidate, you know that you're coming back to your company, post the MBA, certainly the 15-month or the accelerated MBA program works for you. What you would essentially give up on is the summer internship, and you would take classes during the summer to finish your elective credits. But if you are someone who's looking to do a triple jump, you are someone who's looking to potentially work in consulting, work in tech, work in finance, work in rotational programs in the Europe, the UK, Dubai, I would say the summer internship is absolutely critical, right? As an Indian applicant. And I say this with so much conviction because more often than not, Indian students, get internships and get full-time offers right on the last day of their internship. So which means that you have a full-time offer in your hand with a visa sponsorship even before you entered year 2, right? And you really want to find yourself in that position. You don't want to find yourself on the other side of the table, right? So I think, like I said, unless you're a family business or a sponsored candidate, my personal opinion is that you should go for the 19 months and not the 15 months. Well, the cost of both is the same, right? So it's not like you're paying lesser if you're doing 15 months or the 19 months. And well, you really want to be on campus for 2 years. Trust me, this is the best 2 years of your life. So you don't want to shorten that experience by any means or measures. Come September the next year, you have a plethora of different opportunities, right? Of course, you have 130 plus electives, which are at times, segregated into these 5 concentrations that you see, which is international business, finance, sustainability and responsible business, entrepreneurship, and of course, data analytics. You also have an opportunity to do something called the overseas module. These are like 2-week immersion programs that happen in locations like Sao Paulo, Shanghai, New York, Nairobi. We have small campuses in each of these locations. So you would essentially visit these locations, stay for two weeks, and learn about very contextual subjects, right? So for Nairobi, you probably learn about running business in a politically dynamic or a volatile environment. New York, of course, will be all things, finance and cap markets and Wall Street, and the works, right? Of course, Shanghai would be all things operations, management, leadership, and so on and so forth. Now, the most important or the most fun part of this is you can also opt for the international exchange program. Now, I myself was opted for this when I was at IESE, and I went to Cornell Johnson, for an entire semester, right? So it was like a 1 semester exchange where I spent, the entire 5 months from September to December at Cornell in Ithaca. And I think the beauty of it was that I got to experience 2 very diverse learning environments. I walked away with 2 networks because, of course, I had the IESE network and I had like the Cornell new network to top it up. And, it was the international exposure that I really craved as an Indian student who had never gone, out of India to study up until her MBA. So for me, leveraging this international exchange program was the best decision. And I think it taught me so much more and gave me exposure to so many different layers of, how, say, a business school operates into very different markets, right? If you don't want to do either of these 2, You can very well enjoy your time, on the Barcelona campus and go through the 130 electives, choose your favorite ones. And essentially in spring semester, take your balanced credits and you graduate in the month of May of 2025, right? So that's a little bit about what the program overview looks like. Yeah. Now, the case method, right? Now, I touched upon this briefly earlier when I said, guys, 80 IESE is so dependent on diversity, right? And where does this diversity come to play, right? This diversity comes to play in your classroom, because when you have 80% of each class being taught in a case method, imagine all of us are trying to analyze if a retail giant like Zara should enter, India with just physical presence or a physical and digital presence, right? If I were to give this 20-page case study to each of you sitting here and, give you about 2 hours to prepare your analysis, I promise you that we will all have a very different take on it. Despite the fact that we're all from a very similar cultural, very similar geographical background. So somewhere our biases might be similar, right? But coming to a class, you saw my learning team, right? We were like 6 different or 7 different nationalities. Coming to your learning team first to discuss that same case study and understanding from your Brazilian teammate about what his thoughts are, right? Because he's probably seen, retail companies, international retail or global retail chains entering Brazil and having a very different success, sort of mantra, right? Versus I had someone from Israel, who probably wasn't even aware of how, because he was an Air Force pilot, right? And he's kind of talking to me about, I don't know what do you mean by branding. I don't know what you mean by customer perception. For me, it's just about, okay, the CEO wants to expand. Sure, expand where physical presence. I mean, he had no idea about, okay, what should be the cultural understanding of, should a Zara look at, Mumbai? Should a Zara look at Delhi? Should a Zara look at Bangalore, right? But he was so willing and open to understand those perspectives from me, those perspectives from my teammates. And I think the one thing the case study method really does is that it really pushes you out of your comfort zone daily, right? The first 1 week, I went to class with such high level of confidence that I know I've cracked this case. No one's done it better than I have. And in the first 10 minutes, your entire analysis is scrapped, because your peers have probably come with a much sharper and a much more stronger, analysis, and they've probably run regression models on how to, crack this particular question, right? And you're thinking that, wow, a simple operations case study is being looked at from the lens of the entire 360 business panel and from the perspectives of 70 different individuals. This learning happens about 400 times or more than that in the entirety of 2 years that you're at IESE. So you can imagine what is this kind of mindset you're going to walk away with, right? This is the kind of analytical problem solving mindset that you're going to have. And trust me, when you walk out of, when you walk out with this experience, you don't understand the benefits of it till you're actually applying that in your work. And the minute you start seeing that your ability to solve complex challenges becomes so much easier along the way, right? And that's when you really go back and thank your stars that you studied those 400 cases and, you cracked them and came to class, got your opinions shattered and learned something new altogether, right? So before I get to the class profile, guys, want to quickly see if anyone has any specific questions relating to the academic structure of the case method, that I just spoke about. If not, I can happily move on and we can take questions later. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a minute and see.
So yeah, if anybody has questions, you can just unmute yourself and just go ahead.
No questions? Okay.
Hi, Ridhi. This is Piyush here. I wanted to understand one thing about the MBA case studies you mentioned. So are those a part of the curriculum, as in are they discussed while the classroom sessions are going on, or are they just, something that goes on in parallel to your normal classes or normal curriculum?
Absolutely not. In fact, this is the only way your classes will be conducted, Piyush. So what happens is, let me give you an example of what a typical day would look like, right? In your year one, at least, you would have 3 classes a day. So let's assume you start with, something called operations analysis. Then in the afternoon post lunch, you have a class on marketing. And then you have your final class, which is say cost accounting. right? Each of these 3 classes essentially would have 1 case study each, right? So when you come to class and you're learning about, say, the decision tree, or you're learning about, okay, how do you create, an entire robust operations mechanism, when you're looking at like scaling up, right? You're looking at it from a very specific industry and a specific, business challenge, right? So it could be about Spotify talking about, user based expansion or user experience. So you would have like, like I mentioned, Zara talking about expansion, international expansion. So every concept that you learn, every business concept rather that you learn is always via understanding the practical implication through a case study. So you will actually, you have no textbooks at ISE, let me tell you that. Your final exams are not textbook exams where there's a syllabus that you have to go through. More often than not, these are either team projects or essentially a case study that you will analyze and you will write a report for for your final exam. So that's why we say that it's full experiential learning method of teaching, where you're not coming to class and have a professor just narrate, oh, this is the concept, this is the definition, this is the structure, and you're just imbibing. It's very discussion oriented, it's extremely active and engaging, right? So I hope I answered your question.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Great. Madam, hello again. How are you? We've met a few times before. Not at all, because if you are, if you are going for an international exchange, you're gone just for 1 semester, right? You have the entire spring semester to, take the electives. Now, a concentration, madam, typically has about 6 to 7 electives. So if you decide that you want to use maximum of your credits, to finish those 6 or 7 electives, you can still go ahead and graduate with that concentration. So nothing stopping you to do both. Absolutely. Yes, certainly, it would. And so, I mean, in my opinion, if you are if you've probably taken your concentration in business analytics, or data analytics and finance, I would probably be complementing, concentrations, because if you want to get into say IB post the MBA, both of these would have a significant role to play. So you would definitely graduate with both on your transcript. All right, great. All right. Do we have any other questions, or should I just go ahead quickly with the next part?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. All right, guys. So now what's the class profile, right? I know some of you probably asking, this question like that, okay, who is the typical MBA candidate, right? Now, a lot of these statistics are, of course, there to give you a holistic understanding of what your peer group would look like, like I mentioned, and stressed on the fact that, you have 85% international students, 55 plus nationalities. This is, and I give you a live example of what just my learning team look like, right? Yes, we do have an average GMAT score of 680 written there, but let me tell you that 680 is the average, right? And as you would know, it's a combination of lower and higher scores. So having a 650 doesn't mean that you stand no chance. I think overall, looking at your holistic profile, I'm trying to understand who you are, what are your motivations, and most importantly, what do you bring to the table? Because I want to understand that, see if Priyash is applying, and if Priyash wants to come to, IESE, what are his unique skill sets? What are his unique personality traits that's going to add value to the overall cohort in the community? Because like I said, with 80% case study method, you can imagine the amount of, time, IESE is investing in peer-to-peer learning, right? So if you are not bringing enough and more, perspectives, experiences to the table, even a 780 on your GMAT is not going to cut it, right? So point being, GMAT is just one aspect of your profile for us at IESE, guys. It is not a make or a break. It does not define who you are, right? So that's on the overall class profile. Coming to the most important part, what is that you will find yourself doing post the MBA? What are certain industries that do well for us? especially, for Indian applicants, right? Because I can throw numbers at you, which would make sense globally, but, you might be like, but what about us, right? What about Indian students? What are some examples of companies that Indian students have gotten placed in, especially, if you're interested in working in, Europe or, the UK or Dubai, right? Just to give you the overall statistics here, we of course have, a third of the class that goes into consulting. So as you know, that consulting is the largest sector that, hires from us at IESE. The second one being finance. Now in finance, of course, you have, investment banking, corporate finance, finance leadership programs. You also have rotational programs, within finance. And then, the third sector that does extremely well and has been growing, year on year for us is tech. Right? Now, when I say tech, it also, I'm talking about big tech as well. Right? I'm talking about your Amazons, Microsoft, your Siemens, Google, Meta, all of these guys come into campus, for global offices and global recruitment opportunities. What you see here in those, small spurts is something called treks. Now, these treks are essentially niche or like small group student trips, which happen essentially to, specific locations. So for instance, consulting does a trek every month in October, every year in October, where they take you to London in a group of about 30 students to meet, interact firsthand with, recruiters from the MBBs, from strategy, from, Deloitte, from, you go to Germany, you have a small trek which happens in Germany specifically for Roland Berger. You also have, the retail and the luxury trek, which happen in Paris and London as well. You have something called, the Dubai trek, right? Now, Dubai in general is a very welcoming market for Indian students. And let me quickly show you this slide to give you more perspective. Now, guys, this is a compilation of different companies that Indian students or Indian graduates, of IESE are placed in right now globally, right? So you can see that as an Indian student or an Indian applicant, you're not restricted in any way if you come to IESE for recruitment opportunities across Europe and Dubai, right? Goes to say that, every recruiter that comes to campus is looking at global office recruitment, because guys, only 15% of the class is Spanish. They can't afford to come to campus with only Spain, offers in Spain. Like, it's not going to work. And honestly, as an Indian student, Spain would not even be your target market, apart from just a few of these jobs. Like you see, UK is the one that's, got the maximum number of job opportunities across industries. And you also have some fantastic markets that have opened up in the last 4 years, right? You have Netherlands, you have Germany, you have Luxembourg, and you have, Belgium and Denmark, which have all opened extensively to visa sponsorships. And the one thing I can tell you is that, when companies come to IESE, they are sponsoring your visa from day one. So if they like you and they've sent you like, a higher letter, you know that they're sponsoring your visas from day one. So your visas are not dependent on any lottery system or any, governmental, issue where you have a sword hanging on your head. Ki, chalo, 1 saal ka to visa I have. Next year we'll see, where life takes us, right? Your visa is sponsored from day one. So you're guaranteed a job in any of these locations from day one, and the visa stays till you decide to quit, right? That particular job offer as such. So that's something that you really want to consider, especially, as an Indian applicant, going internationally for their MBA, right? And to support a lot of your interests and activities, of course, you have the Career Development Center, but something that stays with you and something that a platform that works with you day in, day out are these professional clubs, right? So, of course, you have the consulting club and the finance and the fintech and the tech and the product marketing club, but you also have some very interesting ones that I've listed here, which is women in business. Right, doing good, doing well. If you're interested in sustainability or anything to do with, sort of ESG, this is the most important club that you want to be a part of, not only from a recruitment standpoint, but also from a hardcore networking standpoint, right? And you can see we have so many different varieties, and this PEVC and family business. The point is, whatever your interest is, academically or professionally, we have a peer network available to sort of work with you, spend time with you, or probably even engage and help you get recruitment opportunities post the MBA, right? So again, before I move on to the final part, which is, walking you guys quickly through what the admissions process and the requirements are. Any questions on the career or the recruitment? No questions.
I think we'll take more questions at the end. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Somebody has a question.
No, let's just take it at the end. It's not an issue.
Let's just take it at the end, Ridhi, so that
Okay,
we can.
perfect. All right. So quickly walking you guys through certain, key deadlines. As you know, we have the early decision coming right up in the month of September. Even if you don't want to meet the early decision deadline, because as the name suggests, you also get your decision very early on in the application cycles. If you don't want to commit to it, round 1 is still a very, very good option for you, which is in the month of October. I would say only if you haven't given your GMAT and you intend to give your GMAT later than October 11th is when I would encourage you to apply in round 2. But apart from that, the earlier you apply, the benefits are not only with respect to conversions, but also scholarships, right? ISE does pretty well on offering, Indian student scholarships. Scholarship amounts often range from 10 to 50% of your tuition cost, right? But of course, the scholarship funds are utilized in the earlier rounds much more than, what we do in the latter rounds, right? So I think as an Indian applicant, I would say up till round 2 is still a solid chance. Round 3 and round 4 is almost a no-go for scholarship, because in all honesty, the funds have completely deteriorated and we have very little to support you then. So I would say keep these in mind when you're thinking about deadlines or application. What is the requirement? Not a very, I would say, cumbersome application for sure. We have a very simple application online form. You have 2 personal questions, 1 optional essay. Insider's tip, use it as not an optional essay and a proper essay, right? Because I would wonder that why would somebody give up 300 more words to tell me a little bit about themselves, right? So I would certainly say that, take it as an insider's tip. Please make use of the optional essay. Give us more data points, right? Tell me more about you. Let me learn something more about you. Why waste it? Why not write anything at all? So you do have the optional essay as well. We, as an Indian student, if you've done your undergrad in English, which I assume most of you or all of you have, and your transcript mentions that, you don't need the English test, so that's waived off for you. But what you do need is a GRE or a GMAT score. Again, I don't have a preference of one over the other. We need only 1 letter of recommendation, guys. And if you do want to apply for scholarship, there is a very short scholarship essay that you can write up, in the application form itself, right? It's not a very complex, application form or process altogether. And quickly on the finances, like I said, ISE does very well on offering scholarships. We also have tie-ups with, 2 Spanish banks and an international, funding firm called Prodigy, which usually does extensively well in providing student loans to most of IESE's incoming cohort, and tuition fees for this year are 99,500. So with that, guys, I come to the end of my presentation. And I try to be as concise, but also exhaustive at the same time. So I hope, each of you had enough and more to take away from this, and very happy to sort of, jump into questions and answer them for you. I know, Ashish, you had one, so let's start with you.
Yeah, hi, Ridhi. Thank you so much for your presentation. I actually have 3 questions. I'll go one by one if you allow me.
Of course, let's answer them.
Thank you. So my first question is, since ISE is in Barcelona and I perceive it as a tourist hub, so does it hamper the industry interface while doing MBA, live projects or the guest lectures? So does it create any hindrance with the location?
Not at all, and I'll tell you why, right? I mean, I think given that Barcelona is, by the way, Barcelona is also a huge startup hub today, right? In the last 8 years, I think Barcelona, the number of startups in Barcelona have tripled, and there's so much international talent that, working out of Barcelona today. But to answer your question, well, who wouldn't ever want to visit Barcelona, right? So I think if I ever invited any industry speaker from, and I remember, like I mentioned, in my introduction, that I was very focused in marketing, because I was going back to a marketing role post the MBA, my family business. I took every luxury marketing, every top level marketing elective, and we had directors of LV Image from France. I had, Charlotte Tilbury, makeup brand, ambassador again, from another part of, France. We had someone from Milan. We had someone from London flying in. Like we had the head of PepsiCo marketing flying from the London office, to give us like a guest lecture, right? So I think attracting professors, whether it's industry faculty or speakers, I think is the easiest for us because we're giving them a weekend in Barcelona. Why not?
Got it. Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you. And my
Do
second
do
question is key. Yeah, Priyash.
I think we will give a special prize for people who use "Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara" type memes while asking questions. Anybody
Exactly.
asking, saying it's not funny, wala joke in the middle of their question will get a special prize from me.
Totally. Totally.
Totally, yes.
So
Uh,
go Ashish.
yeah. And my next question is key, how welcoming is the Spanish job market for Indian applicants? I mean, if I want to work in Spain after my MBA, so how feasible is it for me?
So, in all honesty, Ashish, I will tell you candidly, you will need to know business level Spanish, to
Okay.
work for your own benefit. Because Spanish is, if I may ask you this question, like what part of India are you currently working in?
I'm in Mumbai right now.
Right. Okay. So,
Yes.
a lot of times you see that, when you're working in a city like Mumbai, even though you're in a very English speaking environment, we tend to switch to Hindi,
Yes.
and it's sort of a way of functioning. So someone who doesn't know Hindi oftentimes finds it a bit difficult to associate with, peers or colleagues or, have interactions, especially again, depends what industry you're looking at, right? Now, if you're looking at a marketing or an operations or a logistics or a supply chain job, then certainly Spanish becomes absolutely crucial because you imagine talking to the entire say people at the grassroots in English, right? Like it's not going to work in India. It's the same concept applies in Spain, which is why I said that as an Indian applicant, honestly, Spain would not really be your target market, but you have enough and more opportunities in Europe to explore. But if you're specifically targeting startups, right? Now, startups are very keen on hiring native English speakers. And we've seen that growth with IESE applicants or IESE graduates getting, jobs in Spain in startup companies. So I think it would depend on what sector, what functional role you're looking at. But knowing Spanish at a business proficiency level will certainly be a key requirement, is what my takeaway is.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. And my last question was, I believe you touched upon it while giving the answer to my first question. I just wanted to know, like, you're an alumni of ISC. So what were your aspirations while, submitting your application for the MBA, and how the ISC was able to fit into it? I mean,
So,
yeah.
like why I applied to, so very like great question, Ashish. I mean, I often think about this as well, right? That okay, what did I go into the program with, and what have I come out of the program? Like, what are my key takeaways, right? So when I
Yes.
was applying for the MBA program, I had about 4 years of experience. I had worked in my family business. And when you're working in your family business, well, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're not often challenged, right? So I was in a very like complacent comfort zone where I would go to work, and if I thought of a strategy, everyone in my team thought it was a great strategy, and I realized this is not going to work. I'm not going to grow and learn here, so I need to certainly be in a situation where I'm pushed out of this comfort zone, right? Where I'm challenged, where not every suggestion or recommendation I make is taken at face value. And that's exactly what happened right from day one. Like I said, I went to class so like confident that I had cracked this case study, and it was like a complete like shattering environment where I was like, oh my God, my answer is nowhere close to where the professor went to at the end of the entire discussion. But that's fine, right? That's how you learn, and that's how you keep pushing yourself to get better. Like I remember I had never done a pivot table, and I was suddenly sitting in the operations class where my professor was talking about running 100 regression variable, and I was just staring at her thinking, this, I want to fail this class. Like I have no idea. But the beauty of ISE is that, there are no silly questions, and you can always ask for help, right? Nobody's judging you that, oh, you've come to B school, you should have known this, right? That's never a question. So I remember sitting with one of my teammates who was really good at Excel, and just literally like I hijacked him for the entire day, and I fed him Indian food, and I said, you know what, you're going to sit here and you're going to show me how I work with Excel, right? And today I can very proudly say that, you know, my Excel skills have increased significantly, you know, post my MBA. But I think jokes aside, what I did take away, you know, a lot from the MBA program, you know, Ashish, was the ability to break away from my own biases, right? I realized that it's so important to become an inclusive leader, and inclusive not only with respect to who's on your team, right, but inclusive about other people's thoughts, recommendations, suggestions, and internalizing them before giving my opinion or, well, my suggestion. And I think today, as the admissions, you know, director, the one advice that I give every candidate who goes into the program is a similar one, that be prepared to unlearn, you know, and relearn. Because if you go in with a very set mindset that I know accounting, you know, I'm a CA, like I did it for 4 years, how will you teach me accounting, you know, kind of a thing. And but that's the beauty, right? You go into the program, and when you're thinking about how do you construct a PNL for a pharma company located, you know, in like a small town of, you know, like of say like Latin America, you start thinking about layers which just go beyond, you know, that table, which go beyond like, you know, the credit or the debit, you know, which go beyond just understanding, okay, what is it balancing at the end. You start thinking about what is the score challenge, how can I address it. And I think having that 360 mindset is something that I took away like significantly from the program. Yeah.
All
Thank you
right,
so much,
we'll move
Ridhi.
on
Thank
to
you.
Chirag out here. Chirag has his
Yeah.
hand up. Maybe Chirag can ask your question.
Hi. So first of all, thank you for the presentation. I had about 8 questions written down, and you answered most of them. And Ashish took the other ones. So
Fantastic.
thanks for that. So I'll just expand on some of the points that we've already discussed. First of all is the language aspect. You had mentioned that, you know, there's a 2-week business Spanish course.
Correct.
I've studied French for 3 years. I don't remember any of it. So what does 2 weeks business Spanish really get you?
So
And
2
how
weeks.
do you, you know, how much time does it take for you to actually, you know, develop some sort of at least basic fluency in the language?
Of course, of course. I mean, thank you so much for bringing this up. Maybe I completely missed out on talking about it. That guys, 2 weeks is just the start. It's that intensive Spanish program that, like, say, complete non-Spanish speakers start off with, but the same continues for 2 years. Right. So you, instead of just, so for the first 2 weeks, you don't have any normal MBA class, right? You're just going to school, you know, to learn Spanish for 3 or 4 hours, right? But when, of course, you
Okay,
know,
great.
starts, you have the same business Spanish offered to you twice a week post school hours for an hour each, right? Each of the 2 days. So what happens is that you can actually, for the entirety of your 2 years, Shira, continue to learn Spanish, and you have, I think, level 1 to level 7. And if you really reach level 7, you can actually graduate with a bilingual degree. Like your degree will say that you've graduated in English and Spanish, and you will actually develop business level proficiency in Spanish. I was very
Okay,
lazy
that's great.
up after 2 weeks, which is why I walked away with 3 key phrases, which, like I said, which were hola, como estás, and no hablo español, por favor. Right. And then that's what I use. But I mean, one thing that I would change if I were to ever go back was certainly learn Spanish. But you have 2 years to learn the entire language.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Then again, like you mentioned, you know, you'll have classes through the year. So if you can, you know, give us a little more detail about what the typical day and what the typical week schedule is like. You know, what is the sort of workload that we're doing? How often are we not just meeting for classes, but also doing other sort of networking events? How is that divided? What is the, you know, daily and weekly routine really like for a student?
Of course. I mean, the first year, in all honesty, is hectic, right? Very, very hectic. You have 3 classes a day. So you actually do 3 case studies a day, right? So how a typical day would work for you is that you would wake up, come to school probably between 7:30 or 8 a.m. You would have a 1 hour long team meeting the learning team images that I shared like very early on in my slide, right? So that's your core learning team, right? So you come in the morning, you discuss the 3 case studies for the day with your learning team. So that's the first layer of interaction, right? That's the first layer in which you're looking at your analysis, you're looking at your team's analysis, and you're probably drawing parallels, or you're understanding, okay, this is what I can take away to the class, right? And then you go to class, and then you have, you take this discussion that you had in your small learning team to a larger forum, which is of 70 peers in a classroom, right? Now, for the entirety of year 1, you are sort of assigned a section, right? And ISE has 5 sections. Now, so that, like I said, so year 1 is hectic. You will be in school Monday through Friday for 3 classes, each day. And then of course, after classes get over at around 3 p.m., you have a lot of student activities, right? So you have student club meetings. If you're part of the consulting club or finance club or tech club, you will have something on some or the other initiative, whether it's, something what Ashish was saying, right, about speakers. So we bring, like different clubs bring different speakers to campus. Different clubs arrange for these student treks that, I was mentioning a bit earlier, right? So you would always have some of these different opportunities. And from a social or a networking standpoint, and our ISE has something called Bar of the Week, because of course you're in Barcelona, guys. Every Thursday. So every Thursday you go and explore a new bar in Barcelona, and Bar of the Week there's something, it's called BOW, right? BOW, and there's a BOW club or a BOW committee. One of the most toughest committees to get to, because you really have to work hard on your drinking skills to be able to be a part of that committee. But you decide to pick a bar, engage with, your peers in a very informal setting, right? And that's where the true networking happens, right? And apart from this, whether it's lunch, whether it's coffee, whether it's, meeting professors, I mean, I think this is so important as well, because one is of course networking with your classmates. But I think the other thing that you want to leverage at IESE is the amazing panel of professors we have, right? So you want to, if you've read up about this professor who probably teaches, capital markets, and you want to sit with, him outside of class to really probably discuss an idea, or to just learn about certain concepts, to strengthen certain of your thought processes, you can just, walk to your offices, ask for a lunch meeting, ask for a coffee meeting, sit on campus anywhere, and just discuss and work and network and engage with them, right? So I think year 1 on that front is fairly hectic, because you're going through classes Monday through Friday, you're doing, student club activities, you're of course socializing and enjoying life in Barcelona, but you're also doing a lot of career recruitment, right? Because career recruitment will start from day 1. You will work with your designated career, development team, sort of, whether it's consulting or finance or marketing or, operations, what locations are you targeting? You will start working with them on building your resume. Start looking at, which companies are coming to campus, what is the current network that IESE has that you can tap into. So year 1 is hectic. Year 2 is a bit more relaxed, because it's again electives. You get to choose and identify what your schedule would look like, and that would differ, because you can take 10 electives and make it a choco block, or you can take just the bare minimum number of electives and make it more chill.
Great, thanks. And that also covered my next question about, the accessibility with the professors. So thanks for that. And one more question before I take up everyone's time, just to a little more about living in Barcelona. You had flashed the numbers for the tuition, and you'd mentioned scholarship, but what's cost of living sort of like for 2 years? And does the college give any kind of housing support? Is it on campus, outside campus? Do you live with your cohort? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So another great question. Thank you for asking, Chag. You don't have housing on campus, so you live in the city. Also, the college is very much in the center of the city. And another great point about Barcelona as a location is that it is one of the cheapest cities to live in Europe, compared to some of the other big ones like Paris or London, for instance. So you actually live life king size even on a student budget in Barcelona. So if I were to put like a figure to it, let's say the fees are almost 100K. I would add another 30 to 40K for the entirety of 2 years that you would have to spend, whether it's living expenses, travel within the city. It's extremely well connected with a series of public transport. I thrived on the metro and the bus. I think it connected every small corner of the city. and even food, right? It's very, very economical and very student friendly. Of course, if you get into ISE, you will get, insights on several Indian staff or help support who, come home and cook food for you. And I used to have like, this good, lovely Gujarati lady who would come like, twice a week and make dal and aloo and bindi and three things and, keep it in the fridge for me. So I never had a challenge at all. And it's still very economical from a student budget standpoint.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And I guess I'll cede the floor. Yeah.
Ashmit,
Perfect.
over to you, I think, to ask your question.
Yeah. Hi, Ridhi. Thank you so much for the very wonderful presentation. A lot of my questions have already been answered by you, and thanks to Chirag and Ashish also for raising those questions. So one specific question that I had was to do with the placements specifically for social impact sector and social impact consulting sector, and more so in an Indian context. So I wanted to know a little bit more about that.
A follow-up question before I get to you. You answering your question, Ashmit. Are you planning to come back to India? You said in the Indian context. Do you plan to come
No,
back?
so I'm not planning to come back. By Indian context, I meant for like Indian students. So like.
Fair enough. So what I would tell you is that, when you saw like that consulting, figure, right, 33% of the class goes into consulting. Let me tell you that 25% of that 33 goes into social impact consulting, right, or development consulting, how they call it in Europe. So whether it's, the development consulting arm of BCG, whether it's companies like, Chai, right, whether it's companies like, Dalberg or FSG having counterparts, in Europe or, in the UK, social impact in general is a sector that's growing, but it's a sector that you're going to have to work for as well, right? So for instance, if you're looking at like, the straightforward standard consulting, you have all of these fantastic companies coming to campus for recruitment, you have a lot of alumni already placed in these roles, so networking is easier. When it comes to social impact, in all honesty, you're going to have to work a bit harder for it, right? ISE has, of course, and I mean, one of the key reasons why sustainability and responsible business got added as a new concentration this year is because we've seen that there's demand for it. There is, demand not only from students wanting to learn it academically, but also take forward those learnings into, career prospects post MBA, right? So do I have a glorious number to give you saying, Ashmit, 10% of the class recruits into this sector? No. And I want to be candid about it because it's the reality, right? I don't want you to come to campus and be like, I didn't expect this, having said that, we've seen a steady growth. So I would say certainly anywhere between 3 to 5% of the class, right? So about 3 to 5% of 350 students see themselves transitioning to the social impact sector post the MBA. This number was 0 when I was in B school in 2017. So we've increased this number certainly from there. But it means that while the career services will give you the front door, you're going to have to find the side and the back door to, networking and looking for off-campus opportunities as well.
Okay, sure. Yeah, thank you so much. That answers my question. Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, all right, Nelam, over to you to ask your question.
Yeah. No, we will just not consider it. I mean, in all honesty, like I said, since it's not a requirement for an Indian applicant, we don't necessarily, stress on the score. So if the committee finds that we don't have an official score, we'll just negate the score. So we won't go ahead and use the score, because without an official score report, we don't take just the score on face values. I would say in your case, if you don't have the official score, don't submit it. It's not required. Why submit it? So well structured, there are, again, great questions. So, you have something called career forums, which happen biannually. And these career forums are when these 400 plus companies come to campus, right? And these companies typically are across different industries and different functional roles. If you're looking at, say, healthcare, pharma, you have like, your Eli Lilly's and different pharma companies, you have tech. So you have your Amazon, Microsoft, and Google and Meta coming, you have your retail or your FMCG. So you have your PepsiCo and Unilever, coming to campus. And then you have, consulting, like I mentioned, range of boutique as well as, mainstream consulting. And then you have like, finance, right? So whether you have, investment banks or, companies who are looking at like, corporate finance or rotational programs that come to campus. So this is pretty much part of the structured, recruitment process. So when these companies come to campus, you have an opportunity to interact with them, engage with them, do fireside chats, often do some certain interviews, strengthen your, candidacy. And then of course, IESE also has its own internal job portal, right? So that portal is published with, job listings with, partner companies that we've been associated with for over 3 decades now. So that is and what happens is that because of that portal and access to, job profiles that are also present. So if you're looking at, for instance, let me give an example, right? So Amazon has like a product marketing for AWS listed on its website. Now, IESE's job portal will have the same, job mentioned, and we encourage you to apply via that portal because we have an understanding with Amazon, right? So as the career services lead who looks after tech recruitment, she will know that, 15 resumes and 15 applications have gone in for this role, right? So she will connect with the Amazon recruiter that we are associated with and let her know that, look, 15 resumes have gone through. Why don't you come back to us on what's happening? So it's a direct connect versus, of course, if you're applying, that's the unstructured, right? Where now you found an alum who's working in like, the Luxembourg office of Amazon in a very specific department that you want to get into. Now he recommends you and he sort of, gives you the link to, particular job portal. That's more unstructured, right? Because then the career services team is not really interacting with, the team there. So I think those are the different. And then of course you also have, we have something called CV books, right? So all your CVs are put together depending on your interest areas and shared with, recruiters who reach out to us, with, interest in a particular candidate. I mean, I had a peer in my class who was looking at mainstream consulting, and she had a very strong marketing background, and her CV went into the marketing book as well. And PepsiCo reached out, and PepsiCo was like, oh, we really want to meet her. And she was like, I want to get into consulting. And, the career services was like, why don't you just meet them, right? What's the harm? And she got into a fantastic role at the end of the MBA, in a rotational program with PepsiCo in London, right? And I mean, if you ask her, it was not even in her radar that she wanted to move to a PepsiCo, post the MBA. So that's the kind of structured versus unstructured, recruitment that will happen. Sorry? Define high, Melam, for me.
Like, let's assume eight. Yeah,
8.
okay, 8 to 10. That's
Okay,
what.
so I would say it's not a no-go for sure, because if you see our average number of experience is 5 to 6 and the average age is 29, right? In the Indian context, 8 to 9 years also comes to somewhere around 30 years, 31. So you're not too far off from, that average age of work experience. Yes, what you want to do is you want to use the essay to really tell me why is that you're considering an MBA and not an executive MBA. Right? Because I'm assuming you're already in a certain managerial leadership position. So why just an MBA, right? Why do you not want to go for the executive? So here, in your case, I would certainly make use of the not so optional essay and talk about your reasons to pursue an MBA after 8 or 9 years, and where maybe you're looking at a career change altogether, right? Like I said, the triple jump. That's a valid reason of wanting to do an MBA after 8 years. You realize that I was only in XYZ field and now I want to switch that, and I can't without this intervention coming in. So use the optional essay to talk about it. Great.
All right,
Adit.
can we take Adit? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Ridhi. Good evening.
Hi.
Sorry for the traffic noise if you get some. Okay, I have a very specific question. So by the time this course starts, I'll have a 3 years and 2 months experience in marketing with a GMAT score of 700. So should I apply or should I leave it for next year? And like, should I apply right now or not? Is what I'm trying to ask. So by the time the course starts,
you have 3 years of experience. You said by the time you apply or by the time you come to the MBA program, which one?
by the time I come to the MBA program, I'll have 3 years and 3 months. 3 years and 3 months. And I have a GMAT score of 700.
Okay.
So can I apply right now? Should I apply?
My follow-up question to you on this would be, how does your timeline look, right? Because see, the reason why I ask this is, well, we do say that we need minimum of 3 years of experience, before you come to the MBA program. And why, right? It's because when you're in a class, with 70 peers who all come with about 5 to 6 years of work experience, you're discussing studies, you're taking away. I want to make sure that you are taking away from those discussions, because maybe if you've not had those experiences, is it going to be a fruitful discussion for you, right? On the other side, now, if you tell me, look, Ridhi, I have a personal timeline, right? And then who am I to contradict that, right? So on that front, I would say, sure, you do meet the, the minimum guideline. And to give you a more specific answer, I'm going to have to go through your CV to understand what is the quantum and what is the quality of work you've done so far, right? Because somebody can have achieved a lot, even in just 3 years. And that's more important to me, rather than thinking, now somebody could have been in the same role for 6 years and that wouldn't really appeal to me, because I'm thinking, how has this person grown, right? Versus just in 3 years, you have seen significant growth in your career. So I would say, if you believe that you have that, then I would certainly even apply this year. And if your personal timeline is also, hindering, then I would go ahead and apply this year. It's not going to put you in a how do I say it, in a negative light or something, right? But definitely talk about how you've grown in these 3 years, like tell me, convince me that you have the right skill set to be a contributing member of the community and the class.
So I had a follow-up question to that. So basically, I have worked all this time in marketing. So I just wanted to understand the class profile. What percentage of them come from the marketing background, and how much can I contribute through my own experience?
I mean, more than, I would say, more than 30-40% of the class comes from industry background, which is the combination of marketing, operations, supply chain. Like I said, came from a hardcore marketing background, MBA, right? So I think it's more about, what are your learnings, right? Now, I spent 3-4 years in real estate and luxury beauty in India. So when I went to B school, I had a very strong and robust understanding of, launching a business, right? Of understanding, product and service launches, consumer mindset. How do I engage? How do I create engaging brand campaigns, on set of social media? Because of course, I'm talking prehistoric times. I'm very old. So the onset of social media, right? How has social media become what it is today? So for me, it was already bringing all of these learnings as a marketer to the table. So I would say, think about what are your experiences been. Now, you could have probably, again, I'm taking a wild guess, but maybe you're working in a digital marketing role, right? Which is all things tech that's going to move forward in the future. So is this, how are you going to use your learnings to probably help your teammates understand the power of technology and understand the power of social and digital mediums to, create engaging content, to, build brands which are more relatable and relevant and authentic, right? And then that's absolutely.
Ridhi, I have a question, which is an important anonymous question right now. I believe the application fee for IESE is $200. Is there any special waiver code you're giving for the LilacBuds applicants?
Honestly, why not? Let's discuss this, and maybe the first 3 applicants from LilacBuds, I'd be happy to look at their fees.
Okay, cool, sounds good. So you guys all heard that, and I don't know, since it was an anonymous question, I don't know anybody, but I over to you, Aditya, to continue.
I think
good evening from India. So, hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes. First of all, thanks a lot for this extremely informative session. I think most of my questions have been answered. I have one small question. That you told that that there is a good startup environment coming up in Barcelona, and you passed out in 2017. So how do you think the program has changed with respect to that, and also in terms of the opportunities that we would get once we are a part of the program, in terms of the exposure that we would have to the local markets and the startup environment that you're talking about? So
Of
can you just
course.
throw some light on that?
Of course, of course. I mean, I'll tell you the one thing that's grown tremendously, from the time I graduated up until now, is the summer entrepreneurship project. So when I was in B school, well, summer internship, summer entrepreneurship was still growing as a concept, and it's today offered as a standalone, like, counterpart to a summer internship. So if you have like an idea that you want to work on as an entrepreneur, you can actually use the summer to be on campus, work professors and peers to really create that MVP, create that business plan. ISE also has its own fund now called Finaways, and when my class was contributing big large contributor to that fund, and that fund also, so if you do have a very solid plan, actually the Finaways can fund your idea and you can actually go to market with it as well, whether it's in any part of Europe. ISE also has developed a VC network of about 18 VC firms that come to campus at the end of the second year to actually meet with, say, budding entrepreneurs like yourself, if you do have an idea. On the other hand, now we also have something called, the Startup and Innovation Club, the student club, right? So this club is a great pathway or segue into interacting, engaging with, different startups that are there on campus. In fact, there is an entire annual festival now that happens in Barcelona. I forget the name, but I'll probably circle back and share that with Priyash later, which is just about, like, it's literally about, I think, 1,000 startups of Barcelona and neighboring, cities come, to Barcelona for this 3-day long festival with each of them. And of course, you have a ton of angel investors and VC funds, attending these small presentations where they actually not only provide funding, but as a prospective sort of, graduate, you can even go meet with these guys and interact, and then, potentially get, interviews and job opportunities as well, with a lot of these startups which are there. So I think if you're certainly looking to work with a startup, or say looking at VC in the midterm, right? So the route to VC is startup, right? You have to have startup experience to be eventually make it to a VC fund, in the future. It is literally the hotbed for you.
I think that answers my question. Thank you so much, Ridhi.
All
Great.
right, Ashwin, over to you.
Yeah, hi Ridhi. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the great presentation on IESE. I want to know your opinion on in the area of career change. So how IESE looks at the career shifters, and what factors do you look at in their applications?
Absolutely. So, if I may ask, from what career to what career are you talking about?
So I am from operations background and I want to switch to finance. So I don't have prior work experience in finance, but I have personal interest and I have personal ventures which I've done in finance. So
Okay.
there is a link, but I want to know about more from an admissions officer's perspective. To what factors do you emphasize on?
So in finance, would you be okay? So I'll tell you now. In finance, if you, as a non-finance background, and your undergrad was it engineering or was it business?
It was in engineering.
Okay, so also important, because Ashwin, what happens is if you are looking for a very specific technical role like investment banking, I have seen non-finance people transition to it, but it's a bit harder. But if you're looking at, say, corporate finance roles, if you're looking at finance rotational programs, which a lot of top companies and global MNCs offer, say even like finance and strategy, right? Like, so I think if you're open to industries, or like if you're industry agnostic, where you're not fixated that I want to go in specifically into finance and pharma, or finance and retail, or finance and FMCG, then I think certainly the chances for you to make this triple jump, because I'm assuming you'd want to move to Europe or the UK post MBA, and you're changing your industry and functional area, then your chances would be a lot higher. So I would say the recommendation I would give is that if you know that I want to make it to a finance role, be open to the industry, at least at the onset, right? From a recruitment standpoint, you will just have a lot more opportunities to explore. Investment banking will certainly be a tough one, because they do require some amount of, or whether if it's a CA degree or a CFA degree, that would have certainly bolstered some impact, even though you would have been from probably from an operations background. But given that engineering, is the academic background, I would say that corporate finance in general would be, a very good playing field for you to explore across different industries.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I have another question with respect to the interviews. So many B schools, the interviewers don't have the view of the application. They hold blind interviews, so they only look at the CV. So in order to reduce the bias. So how does it works out in IASE?
No, it's not blind at all. In fact, we don't have any alumni interviews. Usually when you have alumni interviews are when they're blind interviews. We are all our interviews are done purely by the admissions team. And in a case, so for instance, if I'm interviewing a candidate, I have access to the candidate's entire profile. Plus, for instance, let me give you an example. If you are applying, I would be your point of contact because I look after India. But I probably would have, and we keep sort of switching interviews, within us. So if I have somebody who looks after, say, Southeast Asia and Japan, they would probably interview you, but they would have complete evaluation from me along with your entire application of, your candidature. So it's the opposite of blind. It's very open-eyed.
All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Right. Chirag, over to you. I believe we have one more question.
Yeah.
Hi. So one we have spoken about, during the MBA and post MBA. This is, assuming we get into any MBA. Forget this thing. But what would you say? Like, if I give my application and I get accepted in the month of January, February, in that time, in that space, what would you advise, prospective MBA students to do within that space of time, apart from study Spanish, of course? I mean, that's let's say that's a given.
Spanish should be the least of your concern. What I would strongly suggest you do is, start networking, right? And I'll tell you why, because I have seen firsthand the impact of networking on recruitment post MBA. So if I were you, and if I got into, like, say, ISE, in the month of Feb, I had my final decision between Feb and September when I'm on campus. And if I know that I want to, like say, for instance, I know I want to get into product marketing, with, say, big tech companies, right? So I'm very interested in Meta, I'm very interested in Google, I'm very interested in Amazon. I would look up, different opportunities and alumni who are already placed in there, right? The other thing that happens is that once you get admitted at ISE, the engagement with current students in the school begins full throttle even before you're on campus. So we actually do specific career focused events because we know that that's like studies is going to happen once you're on campus, right? No one has a bandwidth. If I tell you, oh, you must do this course, I know you're not going to do it, so it's a waste of time. But what works is that we actually have something called the India Business Club. Now, within the India Business Club, we do have different members who are taking care of different aspects, right? So someone's doing consulting, someone's doing a buddy system. So within the India Business Club, you, as soon as you're admitted and you pay your deposit, you are buddied up with, a current student who's either from a similar background as you or is probably working in a field or a sector which is of your interest, right? So that automatically starts helping you kickstart the networking process, right? Because I can imagine that it's daunting initially to, how do I reach out? Who do I reach out to? So, and we start doing a lot of career relevant, career focused, panels and webinars and meets, right? We even just like 3 months ago, I did like a massive meet across Bombay, Bangalore and Hyderabad, where I had all the admitted students coming together with a few alumni who are in India, just talking about what to expect at ISE and then, alumni sharing their experiences. So I think being a part of these initiatives and activities is certainly going to bolster or sort of build a foundation of a network even before you get to the school, right? So I would say this is something you should certainly do.
All right, Ridhi, I have one or two questions of my own. One is, I mean, everybody's been asking the more serious questions, but I believe Spain is a whole lot more fun. Clearly, traveling La Tomatina is like exceptionally well known at this point. What's the fun aspect to the whole learning. I mean, you got to balance work,
Yeah.
learning, career versus having a great time at your MBA. It's a lifetime experience. What is your what did you do, and maybe what would you recommend everybody who joins the program to do?
Yeah, certainly. I think the one advice I would give, well, as an alumni, not an admissions director, is to is to like not over prioritize any aspect of the program. Guys, it is like Priya said, at the end of the day, the 2 years that you will remember for a lifetime. So attend those bows that you have. Please go out with your friends on Friday night, Saturday night. Like I remember, I don't think I ever did anything productive or meaningful on a Saturday, because like Friday evening was dedicated to debauchery, right? Like literally, it was that. But also, I think on the other side, I was very fond of hiking and trekking, and Barcelona has beautiful like treks to Montserrat and Tibidabo. So if you are somebody who likes to be amidst nature once in a while, you have great treks that you can explore. I mean, for me, traveling within Europe had never felt this easy, right? I mean, you have your residency card, you take a train, and within 3 hours, you're in another country altogether. So, whether it's taking like, if you have a long weekend, take that 3-day trip, with your friends, and it all has to be like budget friendly. I mean, of course, if you want to splurge, you can. But ISU also does a lot of fun things. We have something called ski essays. So if you're into skiing, you go to the slopes of Andorra for one weekend, and you'll spend like the weekend skiing and partying on like, the snow-capped peaks. You also have a lot of cultural treks. You have the Japan trek and the China trek and the Latin America trek, which actually happens during the carnival, the Brazilian carnival. So you're actually part of that crazy carnival in Brazil, with Brazilians really taking you around, like, not like a tourist, but actually like a resident. Well, I did like an India trek, where I brought like 10 people to India, and then we went and saw the Taj, and then I took them to Jaipur, and then obviously got them to Bombay. Very 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 timid manner, fed them some Indian street food, hoping that they all survive it the next day. And so it's great fun, guys. I think that's the cultural experiences that you certainly want to be a part of, right? Beyond just the studies and the recruitment.
All right, and one question actually, I don't know, do you also handle the MIM admissions for IESC, or do you only do the MBA?
No, I only do the MBA, but very happy to, if someone is interested in the MIM, very happy to put them through, a colleague who looks after the MIM, for India, but I only do the MBA.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you. I think so much for your time, everybody. All the people who've joined today. I hope you got most of your answer. I mean, I hope you got most of your answers. Made up your mind today. I post this call, that you would like to apply to the ISC program. Once again, thank you, Ridhi, for
Thank you.
patiently probably spending 20 minutes over the scheduled time to already do this. And guys, once again, we'll stay in touch. I mean, Rajiv, myself, Karan, we'll all come back to all of you, and let's circle back on taking things forward with the application. All right, Ridhi, if you can stay back, and the rest of you can drop off. Thank you very much.
Good luck, guys, and wish you all the best in the next steps. And yeah, if you guys have any further questions, you can reach out to Priyash and he'll connect us.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks, Ridhi. Thanks, Priyash.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karan, you want to stay back this time? Yeah, just a minute. Okay, all right. I think there's just three of us.
Yes.
All right, good. How was the session according to you?